Now in this second video we're looking at the application process. So you've had the recommendation back from Countrywide and you've gone to see the client now to present the strategy to them and then to maximise all the sales opportunities that come from that. Okay, right. As I said from when we met last time, we've got the recommendation back from Countrywide, which I'll go through in a minute. Absolutely bespoke for you. Just want to recap though the reasons that we're doing this and what it achieves, just so that we're all completely focused on what's coming out of the meeting today. So just to go back, what we said last time is how it all worked. We would write a will, or wills for you. We would sever the tenancy of your home so that on paper it's owned 50-50. Yeah. And we would set up trusts, and it was a question of how many you would need to take your assets on death. Okay, so that, ostensibly those elements make up the recommendation that Countrywide have come back with. Okay, so let's turn to the recommendation that Countrywide have actually made from the information we provided for them. So as you can see here, based on the information provided, Countrywide Legal Services Limited recommend the following solution. So as you can see here, they've played back the value of your estate, so what you own jointly and what you own individually at the moment. And if you remember, there's this figure of 850,000 for your total estate. So what they've done now is looked at you both individually, because remember the whole point of this is that we try and split as much as possible out to your own ownership. They said that you should have a will each, a family trust each, a deed of severance to split the tenancy of the property, a life assurance trust each to take care of the policies you've got, and because you're both in an employer's scheme, a death in service trust. And the last bit is about storage, which we'll talk about a bit later on, but they'll keep all the documentation together so everyone knows where it is should the time arise. And what they've done here is given me some technical information which I'll come through when we do the presentation for you specifically in a minute. As you can see, it's all been put together by Janet, who's one of the technical experts at Countrywide. Okay, Paul and Kate, now we've had the recommendation, we're going to draw this out as your asset protection strategy now. So, Paul. And we've got Kate over here. We first of all need to start with your will each, as it says on the recommendation. And then we've talked about a family trust. So Paul, this is your family trust for the benefit of Kate. And we did the same over here. So for Kate we've got a will, and then we have a family trust, which is Kate's family trust for the benefit of Paul. And we have got life assurance trust to write because of your single life policies. Because you've created a reasonable amount of wealth already and you've got a good employer scheme, we need to put separate trusts in for your pensions. And the last thing we need to do is separate the property, so sever the tenancy so that you own 50% of the property each. Okay, make sense? Okay, so we've covered all these areas, okay, long-term care, and we come at last to your estate, which you remember was valued at 850,000. Yeah. So now if you remember we talked about these scenarios, so the first one that we'll cover is when you unfortunately, Paul, die. So you've died, your will comes into play, obviously at that point, and any money you have pays into the family trust for Kate's benefit, and your half of the property goes in there as well. Your life assurance trust would pay out for the benefit of Kate, and so would your pension trust. So all those benefits are there. Do you remember we talked about these back in here? So when I give you the brochure later on, you can have a look back. Because we put your life assurance policies and your pensions into trust as well, they're not just protected for any future divorce or bankruptcy, but they're also protected for long-term care. So when the local authority come along to look at the value of any assets that you hold, then none of these can be taken into account, including half your property. So on this Cragg report that we talked about before, the government's valuation is 0. So although you have all these assets available to Kate to use, the local authority can't take them into account. And what you've bought effectively is control of the assets rather than the local authority telling you what they're going to do.
It's very clever, isn't it?
It is. So you've protected the property there. So what we've effectively done through this strategy is avoided Jessica and Charlotte paying £80,000 of tax. Again, because the property's dropped into trust, and most importantly the life and pensions that we talked about, your estate now comes under the level of 650,000. Each individual has 325,000 of what they call nil rate band. So taking that into account, that leaves your a saving of £200,000, the tax on that is £80,000.
That Jessica and Charlotte would have to pay.
They would have to pay.
Yes.
Now by doing this, we've just wiped out that £80,000 cost.
They don't have to pay it anymore. It's very good.
So in terms of what it's going to cost you, Countrywide's invoices here, it's £810 for Paul and £630 for Kate. Both of those include VAT.
A bit more than I thought, but the benefits definitely make it good value.
No, I agree.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, let's do the paperwork. I guess that's the way forward. Now, after I've completed the instruction sheet, which will have all the information, can I ask you first to see the Guardian Executor and Trustee
Yes, we
forms?
filled that form out.
Yeah, I did check before I came back, didn't I, just
Sure.
to make sure. So this is the information that we'll transfer onto here.
Yes.
And so I will contact them to make sure they understand their roles and responsibilities in
Right,
it.
okay.
And what we'll probably do when we come to sign is get everyone together, probably around this table, and get it all signed so we all know exactly what we're doing.
Okay.
The paperwork will go off to Countrywide with the money. They'll then come back within 7 days, there's a 7-day cooling off period, and they'll give us drafts to check just to make sure the names, addresses and everything are correct, because that's the thing we need to be really, really careful about.
Yes.
And then everything we put into place, executed, and the kids are secure.